Is Eric Conrad is the Messiah in ballet? That's a question. Yes, it's true. I've been asked that question, and yes, I can tell you it's true. So let me explain what I mean by that. So there are like three stages, I would say, because I was around him for 20 years. So I would say, it's actually three stages that I see him working as a Messiah, and I will give you short information for each one of them. So the first one is when I was an observer around him. Then the second one as a student of his, and then the third one as a teacher. So let's start with the first one as an observer. So when I would observe him teaching other people, when I was in studio with him, it's actually was, I would say the true word I would say, it always was mesmerizing to watching him teaching other people. It's like every time when he would work with them, it's more like you can see the reaction between them to him, like between them and then their reaction to him. And it's always been the same reaction. People sometimes will get a little bit frustrated, and then he will perform a miracle in them, and they immediately, yes, that's true. No matter what, like even if they will struggle with the pirouette, they will struggle with arabesque, it doesn't matter what they will struggle, even with any kind of steps or even just understanding of it. Moment he explains, moment he shows up, and immediately relieves all of the questions, and it's literally would be like a little miracle to see it. And it was very, very exciting to watch. It's to me, it's still when I observe him doing that, even still now, sometimes when I observe him, it's the same way. Every time I see him working, it is really mesmerizing. I watch and I immediately get fascinated myself. Like, how the hell is he still doing this? Even so, like I'm around and I know how he does it, and I still find myself getting to this point where, like, some of things I still don't understand how he does it, because he sometimes people ask the question, and even I would be like, oh, probably he will not answer, and then boom, he's answering it. And it's really, really actually, yeah, it actually looks like a miracle when he does that. The next stage is as a student of him, when I started to do ballet myself. Well, there's an image of me being like the way I started, not in a good shape after pregnancy, and I had a lot of, I have a lot of health issues. Like, I had headache, I have the issue, hip problem. So we'll go into that. In any case, so when I started to do class, yeah, I always believed that, I grew up with that belief that ballet is only for people who were born to that. It's not for adults. And I was skeptical a little bit. And then when he actually started working with me, and when I started transformation of myself, that also led to the same thing. Like I started to believe that, yes, it is a miracle. And believe me, I tried, to be reasonable and to just say fight him on um, the way he explains and the way he delivers the message to me. And I thought, I was like, well, like there's some kind of a logic behind it. So, obviously I can learn some of the way you explain it and understand and put it through my body. So actually, I used to think it's like, yeah, you can do it on your own. You don't need really the teacher for that. And when I realized, no, you need him, in order for you to improve and continue and grow and get better at it, you need him for sure. You cannot do it on your own. And in one way, it's a very good thing, because when, let's call it like this, as a student, right? When I'm without him and trying to do ballet, even so I understand the way he explains and I try to apply it, it immediately becomes chaos. It's really hard to do it on myself. It's like too many things at once. I become more chaotic, I would say, and it's like, and it becomes in a way very, very disappointing to me that I cannot actually organize myself and do it very clearly. Then when he steps into the class, and then when he takes over of my body and starts doing it as he commands, it becomes very logical, very easy to do. Even so, sometimes I maybe even feel frustrated, emotionally, because I get like, why is he capable of doing it and me are not capable of doing it? That's mostly what happens in my head. And then as long as like I stop uh, thinking that way, and I start listening to what he says, everything starts to working out. Even so, my body sometimes maybe even resist, but then when he keeps pushing and insisting on what he wants, it's actually keep doing it. And even so, if I think, like I'm not capable of doing it, suddenly I'm doing it. So again, those are the things that in my mind, and it feels and it looks like it's a miracle because um, I actually do try to resist, and then when he explains why I'm resisting it, it's almost like, oh my God, how does he know that? Like, why? Like, is he reading my mind? Am I saying something that he's reading my mind? What is it? Because sometimes he says things, and I'm like, that's exactly what I was thinking. And it's almost, yeah, I would say, and it's not because he knows me that very well, because I've seen him doing exactly the same thing to other people. Consider that he doesn't know them that well personally. So I used to think it's just because you think you know me personally, that's why you can read me that easily. No, it's not true, because he does the same thing to people that he met, let's just say 2 hours ago, and then he performs the same miracle on the students. And so this is really, really, in my understanding, because I'm not capable of doing it to other people. So yes, it is a miracle. It is a, I would say that it is a Messiah for sure, who is capable of doing that. Now, the next stage is as a teacher, right? So now sometimes I'm already also teaching people, and so yes, there are things that I do understand. As a Obviously, when he explains, it's not a secret. He does certain things that he explains, and I understand. And then, but yes, for sure, there are certain things that only he knows how to do. And no matter how much he will explain to me as a teacher, when I struggle to give it to other people, he steps in and fix it very well. And it is amazing to watch it. And acceptance of it is the realization that it's I mean I did fight a little bit, in a way, to understand. It's like, wow, there's a logic. You should want and go through this, that this how to do it. And then when he does it, it's like it seems like he exactly said the same things that I said, and then suddenly people respond differently. My own students, because I do ask him sometimes to help me out with my own students, and because they want to perform and they want to obviously go on stage. And for me, it would be very bad as a teacher not to share and not to get a Messiah to work with them, right? So what I do is I ask him sometimes to help me, and then go, okay, can you take over and help them? And this is what interesting I've noticed, that even so, we're doing a lot of it sometimes on the Zoom, because that's makes it even more interesting and more amazing. It's almost like the Star Wars. I can choke you through the TV, right? That idea. And that's what he does. So I work with the students on Zoom, and then he does exactly the same thing. It's my students. I ask him, can you please help them, because I sometimes cannot, for some reason I can't get the message going. Maybe I'm doing something wrong. And then when he steps in and says to them and explains, and even just says few words to them, and they on spot doing it, respond to him. And I watch it, and I was like, how the hell does he does that? Because it's very impressive. And in a way, there are a few things, like I have to accept that, let's call it like this. Well, in some cases, be honestly, obviously it bruises me a little bit, my the pride, like my ego, like, well, I can be also a good teacher, and I also can be a good student. Why is it like, why is it I can't understand why? What are you doing exactly different? Even so, I'm watching you. I'm kind of, let's call it, the shadow you, and it's very hard to understand. It's like, what is it exactly he does that makes people to do things better, and improve right away? And believe me, I've tried to understand that for many, many years, and I came to one conclusion. It's from, if we're talking about honestly, sure, we can talk about intellect and all that. It's fine. It's a different topic. Let's not get to it. And I consider myself somewhat, capable of understanding and learning things, and I'm proud of that. But then he does it on the next level, and that level, unfortunately, sometimes it's hard to understand for me. and comprehend it. But at some point, I started to fight it, stop fighting it, because I realized it's a leap of faith for sure. It's exactly one thing that's the reason why we believe in things, right? And moment you start to understand that there are certain things that you cannot explain, um, and for example, obviously a Christian, so I do uh, understand that, and then I've been raised in this, so and this is the only thing I can compare it. It's like it's one thing. At some point it becomes a belief. It become, well, I would say normally it would translate man on faith, but I would say because I'm a woman, I'll just go with that. I'm a woman of faith, right? So yeah, it just keeps only one thing and only one explanation. It's a faith. You have to take this leap of faith in him and realize it. Without him, it's hard to do the next step. So when he's around, everything works out well. And I've seen it many, many times. And one of the greatest examples is the professionals that he worked with. Some of them are famous ones. Let's not go into the names. I'm sure you all know which names we're talking about. But yes, I've seen it personally happen to them, how they transform, how they react. And I've seen it not only that they react like that in person, I've seen them react in the same way over Zoom, where he's not in person with them and they have exactly the same reaction. So that is an amazing thing to see. And it's a really, really, in my book of definition, I would say, yes, he's a Messiah. And I can get more videos about it and we can show it. There's, as been requested, we will show some of the videos about physically actually where he's performing one of the miracles on me, because I'm a very difficult student, believe me. I guess that's probably one thing I can tell. I am, from all of the students, I'm probably the most difficult one, because I question a lot, and that's probably not always good. But then from the other side, it's also good from one side, where at some point I worked all of the different logical explanation. If it's not working out, so I understand, okay, so it's literally now it's a faith and I have to accept that. And I do believe, I do believe in God, so I do believe that he is the Messiah in Ballet, and there is no other way. And it's been proven for many, many times, not only on me, but on other people. And I've seen it in my own eyes when he's doing it with my own students that I've been actually working for some time. And yes, they have an improvement, but when he steps in, they improve it way more. It just goes like, for example, I'm just giving an example. If I take a student and I work with them, they're going to go maybe right here. And then when he steps in and takes my student, and then he immediately jump this way. So it's a really amazing thing to watch. And when you accept that somebody is that good, and let's call it this, I keep saying that he's a Messiah in Ballet, at some point, that kind of a feeling of bruising your own pride goes down, and you just pretty much only dependent on him, and you just feel like without him it's very hard to achieve anything. And yeah, and you just want him around, and then you notice like moment he shows up, everything goes good and everything becomes more clear. Even so, maybe you don't understand, but it becomes very, very clear. And give more examples of the miracles that he performs every day. I would say it's everyday miracles. Unfortunately, we don't record all of them, but when we do, most of the time it's an improvement immediately, that we're talking about people improve within a few minutes, and the way they feel about it, about themselves, and how they, after that, when they go into performance, or they do, it doesn't matter, performance, or they go their own in life, the way they actually, feel about life in general. And this is one thing that I can add. I do similar things. I have the same feelings too. It's honestly, sometimes I get into the class and I like, let's just say, like, I'll go very, very dark and very like, what it is, like you feel like, you're very dark, you just don't want to do it, something is on your mind, disturbs you, and you just like, like you kind of don't even feel well, not even about the class, you just feel not well, maybe about the whole life, and then suddenly you do class with him, and it's everything becomes better, the day becomes brighter, and you feel like, oh, there's a hope in life, and you can actually want to do better, and you want to improve yourself, and you kind of feel look forward to it, like, yeah, it's you want to be better, you want to achieve something good, you want to be not only better for yourself, but if like talking about like in general, you want to do better for the family, do better for, even if you're a performer, better on the stage, so yeah, it's rarely like that happens when you feel like that about people, right, in general. And I guess if we're talking about faith here, yes, I would compare the only time you feel like this when that's why you go to church, and then you feel like, I went there, and then you feel a little bit better, and that's the only similarities I can draw on this, that's how it feels, really. So you go take a class with Eric, and then you feel better, and you feel better physically, you feel better emotionally, you kind of look at the world a little different, and you kind of look at it as like everything will be okay, it's good, and you can tell him a lot of, let's just say, um, your secrets, your thoughts, your ideas, and you're gonna be feeling okay that it stays between you and him, and it's not gonna go anywhere in public or not gonna be used against you. So yeah, it's actually really, really nice, to have that, it's almost, yeah, that's the only way you feel it, I guess that's what the point of Messiah, right? You come to them, they tell you exactly that's, what's wrong with you, like what you're doing, how can you improve, and then they give you the recipe what to do with it, and then you go about it, and you feel it like, yes, I'm gonna do this, I'm actually gonna make it happen, and I'm gonna make it work. Yeah, that's that's one of the, I would say that's probably the closest explanations I can do, but if it needs to be more, I can go into it in more details. It's just I don't want to go too much at once, because I have way more to explain and say it, it's gonna take a lot to actually explain all of the miracles that he performs, and to prove, believe me, he is a Messiah in Ballet. So yeah, anyway, I'm out. It's a plan out. Bye.